You're lucky I haven't left you already, she said, her voice as flat as the eggshell white plate she dropped on the table in front of me. No breakfast. Just a plate. It was 7 in the morning. A Tuesday. I had just woken up, still foggy-headed, still halfway in a dream where life hadn't turned so damn sour. What? I blinked. Carla didn't even look at me. She had her phone in one hand, nails clicking against the screen, a lazy smile crawling across her face like a shadow. Her makeup was already done. Bright red lipstick, sharp black liner, gold hoops dancing as she moved. She was dressed to go out. Too dressed. The kind of look you put on when you want someone to look. And I knew, deep in my gut, I wasn't the someone. You heard me, she said, finally glancing up. This whole retirement setup you're so proud of? It's pathetic. You sit around like you've accomplished something, when in reality, you've just settled. A tiny pension and a recliner. That's your legacy. She stood up and left the plate there, untouched. It wasn't a breakfast plate. It was a message. Empty. Cold. Like her. I didn't speak. I couldn't. I sat there, the coffee burning my tongue as I swallowed too fast, and the words just spun in my head like loose bolts rattling in an empty can. We've been married 32 years. I put in every overtime shift I could grab to build that pension. Carla hadn't worked in over a decade. She said it stressed her out, and I never pushed her. I wanted her to be happy. That was the point. We were supposed to retire together. But now? She spoke to me like I was just some obligation she was itching to escape. The signs had been crawling in under the doors for months, maybe longer. Whispered phone calls in the garage. Locked screens and sudden laughs. Girls' nights that didn't smell like perfume, but cologne when she stumbled back in at midnight. She didn't even try to hide it anymore. The day before, I found a receipt in her coat pocket, $200 at a rooftop bar I'd never heard of. Just 2 drinks and a lobster dinner. I asked her about it. She rolled her eyes. A client, she said. What client? I asked. None of your business, Gerald. Jesus, you're not my handler. She used to call me honey. Then babe. Then Jerry. Now it was just Gerald, said with a sharp edge like she was spitting out a bone. But that Tuesday morning? That was the day I felt it. The moment I realized this wasn't just a phase. Something had shifted. She'd been planting little landmines for months, waiting to blow up everything we built, and now she was openly daring me to step on one. And the worst part? She thought she was smarter than me. She thought I'd sit back, hand her half of everything I had earned, and walk off into the sunset like some neutered mutt who was lucky to have had her at all. But she didn't know the kind of man I really was. I didn't scream. I didn't plead. I didn't beg her to love me again. Instead, I waited for her to leave that morning, high heels clacking down the hallway like war drums, and I sat down with my old laptop and started looking up legal terms I never thought I'd need. Trusts, transfers, protected assets. And somewhere between the 6th and 7th link, a thought struck me like lightning. What if I gave it all away, but not to her? What if I turned the tables before she even knew a game was being played? I stared at a photo on my desk. My grandkids, Tyler, 6, and Ava, just turned 9, smiling in the sun with ice cream on their faces. They were innocent, pure. Everything Carla wasn't anymore. A plan started forming in my mind. Not revenge. Justice. Quiet, clean, devastating. Let her mock my pension. Let her try to take it. I'd make sure the next time she walked into court, she'd be suing her own grandchildren. And I'd be sitting right there, watching her world cave in. But she wouldn't see it coming. Not yet. No. First, she had to believe she'd won. By the time Friday rolled around, she was already floating on some invisible cloud, drunk on her own imagined victory. She'd been humming to herself all morning, some pop song from 20 years ago, the kind you hear when people are packing up their lives for something new. I didn't ask where she was going. She didn't offer. She just made sure I saw the new suitcase. Black leather, expensive looking. Something bought with a credit card I paid off every month without complaint. You'll be fine here, she said, tossing her hair over her shoulder like some diva in a cheap soap opera. Try not to burn down the house while I'm out networking. I nodded, tight-lipped. She kissed her finger and touched it to my forehead. A sick, mocking ritual she started doing lately. Like I was her old dog staying home while she went out to be, whoever she was now. As soon as she left, I went to work. I had already spoken to a lawyer. Not one of those big billboard types with slick hair and shiny suits. I found a quiet bulldog of a man named Roger Whitmore, late 60s, former judge, now semi-retired, but still sharper than most men half his age. His office was tucked into a strip mall between a closed-down dry cleaner and a vape shop, but the second he opened his mouth, I knew he was exactly the kind of ruthless I needed. "You're not the first man to sit across from me with that hollow look in your eyes," he said, folding his hands across a legal pad. "But if we play this right, Gerald, you'll be the first one who smiles when it's over." He called it the icebox method. We would transfer every cent of my pension into a legally bound trust, irreversible, protected, and bulletproof. The beneficiary? My grandkids. Tyler and Ava. Not their parents. Not even me. Just them. I wouldn't be able to pull it back out, but that wasn't the point. The point was, she wouldn't be able to touch it either. "You do this," Roger said, leaning in. "You won't have it if you need it. No takebacks. But you'll also sleep at night knowing that Snake and Heels can't bleed you dry. She sues you, she sues them." I said yes before he finished the sentence. It felt like taking a breath after being held underwater for too long. For the first time in months, I wasn't the one reacting. I was acting, planning, countering. That weekend, I started seeing her more clearly. All the lies she'd layered on, like paint on a crumbling wall. I saw through every smile, every fake laugh, every phone call that ended the moment I walked in the room. She had a man. Of course she did. Probably younger, richer, or at least more exciting. Maybe he was dumb enough to believe her sob stories about a neglectful husband and a life of wasted potential. I could imagine her rehearsing the lines in the mirror, hand to her chest like she was auditioning for a tragic movie role. But I didn't care about him. I cared about the look on her face when she realized she'd made the worst miscalculation of her life. The best part? I told no one. Not the kids. Not my brother. Not even my closest buddy at the VFW. Total silence. That was the weapon. She still thought I was the same gullible sap who fixed the garbage disposal when she called me crying last year after flooding the kitchen. She didn't know I was a storm now. And I was building. By Monday, the paperwork was in motion. My pension was out of my hands and sealed up tight in a vault with 2 tiny names engraved on the lock: Tyler and Ava. Every cent. Every compounder and dollar. Safe. Untouchable. Eternal. Then came the phone call that sealed everything. "Gerald," she said sweetly, dragging my name like honey across glass. "I've been thinking a lot about our situation. Maybe it's time we consider separating our finances. You know, like grown-ups." I felt my lip twitch, but I kept my voice calm. "That's a mature idea, Carla. I'm glad you're thinking ahead." She chuckled. "Yeah, I thought you'd say that. I'll swing by the lawyers tomorrow. I'm gonna file." "Perfect," I said. "Let me know if you need anything." She had no idea. She was about to file for divorce. She was about to demand half of a bank account that didn't exist anymore. And I was about to watch her, in open court, try to claw money out of a fund that belonged to children. The fuse had been lit. She just didn't hear the hissing yet. The next morning, she strutted into the kitchen wearing heels so tall I thought she might break her ankle on the tile. She had on that navy blue blazer she only wore when she wanted people to think she was powerful courtroom armor. Her nails were freshly done, long and red, and when she reached for her coffee mug, I noticed the gold bangle around her wrist. New. Flashy. Bought with my money. "Wish me luck," she said with a wink, grabbing her keys. "Big day. Everything changes today." "I'm sure it does," I muttered behind my coffee. She didn't hear me. She was already halfway out the door, texting someone, smirking like she'd just pulled off the heist of the century. I waited till I heard the engine fade down the street, then walked into my office, locked the door, and sat down at my desk. My hand hovered over the drawer for a second, then I pulled it open and took out the file. The trust paperwork. Roger's number. The whole damn blueprint of her downfall. I opened the email from his office. The trust had been finalized. Filed. Confirmed. The only way to undo it now was to convince 2 minor children to dissolve it. Good luck with that, Carla. I scrolled further, past the receipts, past the dates, until I found the draft Roger had prepared. A simple line of text that had taken her future and sealed it away. Beneficiaries: Tyler Joseph Sanders and Ava Lee Sanders. No substitutions. No amendments. Irrevocable. It was done. Carla, in her rush to win, never once thought to check. She just assumed my pension was sitting pretty in the same account it always had been, ready for her to take a carving knife to it. She had no idea she'd be filing for half of nothing. Actually, worse. She'd be filing for half of something belonging to 2 children, which meant this wasn't going to be a negotiation. It was going to be a spectacle. I closed the laptop and leaned back, letting out a slow breath. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from adrenaline. I hadn't felt this alive in years. I spent the rest of the day cleaning out the shed, blasting Johnny Cash loud enough to rattle the windows. When Carla came home, she gave me a weird look. "What's with the noise?" she asked, dropping her bag with that dramatic sigh she always used when she wanted attention. "Just clearing out junk," I said, not bothering to look at her. "Thought I'd make some space. You never know when life's gonna shift gears." She blinked, lips slightly parted. I could tell she didn't like that, me being vague. She liked control. Certainty. She needed to know I was under her thumb. And now? I wasn't playing the game anymore. "Anyway," she said after a pause, trying to recover, I filed. "We've got a preliminary hearing next Friday. My lawyer's putting together an assets list. Just a formality, of course. You'll be getting the paperwork soon." She smiled, smug and slow. A python ready to squeeze. I nodded. "Looking forward to it." She paused again. I could feel the tension building, like a pot of water on the verge of boiling. She was confused. I wasn't reacting the way she expected. No begging. No anger. No fear. Just calm. That night, she made herself a martini and watched some trashy reality show in the living room, laughing too loudly. I watched her from the hallway, hidden in the shadows, and felt something shift in me. This wasn't the woman I married. This was someone else. A hollow thing wearing Carla's face. Cruel, arrogant, convinced the world owed her something. She'd built her plan like a queen mapping out a chessboard, thinking she was always 3 moves ahead. But she never saw the knife I'd slipped under the table. And then it got better. 2 days later, I got a call from her lawyer. "Mr. Sanders," the woman's voice said, "we're requesting full financial disclosure for the pending divorce proceedings. Bank statements, pension details, property valuations." I smiled. "Of course. I'll forward everything to my attorney. And just to clarify, the pension's no longer in my name. It's in a legally binding trust. Irrevocable. Beneficiaries are my grandchildren." There was a pause. I see," she said slowly. "When was this?" "Finalized last week," I said. "All legal. You're welcome to have your office review the documents." Silence. Then it clipped. "We'll be in touch." Click. And just like that, the seed had been planted. Carla's camp had just found out that the golden egg they planned to steal belonged to children now. If she wanted it, she'd have to go to court and demand kids give her the money. And I dared her to try. She had no idea yet. But the walls were closing in. Next Friday, she'd walk into that courthouse thinking she was the queen. And she'd walk out realizing she'd just declared war on her own grandchildren. Friday came like a slow-moving storm, quiet at first, but heavy in the air. Carla spent the morning preening. Her hair was pulled back into one of those sleek, no-nonsense buns she wore when she wanted people to take her seriously. Power lipstick. Power heels. Even a little folder tucked under her arm like she had actual work to show, pretending, as always, to be the savvy, scorned wife reclaiming her independence. She didn't ask if I was coming, just assumed I'd show up like a beaten dog. I watched her from the kitchen as she adjusted her earrings in the hall mirror, muttering something about clean breaks and justice. "Do you need anything?" I asked deadpan. She looked over her shoulder and gave me this fake little smile, the kind you'd give to someone you're about to walk over. "Just a new life," she said. Then she left. I arrived at the courthouse 10 minutes before the hearing. Roger was already there, cool as ice in a dark gray suit that didn't scream money, but whispered competence. He handed me a file and nodded once. "They don't know yet," he said. "You're sure?" "Oh, they know something," he said, grinning. "But they don't know they're walking into a bear trap." The room was small. Not a full trial, just a preliminary hearing in one of those back offices converted into a makeshift courtroom. No jury, just a bored-looking judge in glasses and a clerk typing slowly in the corner. Carla sat on the other side with her lawyer, a younger woman in a sleek pantsuit who looked like she practiced smiling in the mirror and still hadn't nailed it. Mr. and Mrs. Sanders, the judge began, adjusting her glasses. We're here today to review preliminary financial disclosures and set terms for temporary division of assets while this case proceeds. Carla's lawyer stood. Your Honor, my client has filed for divorce under the grounds of irreconcilable differences. She is seeking a fair distribution of all marital assets, including Mr. Sanders' pension account, which comprises the majority of their shared financial portfolio. Roger didn't even flinch. He rose slowly, deliberately, and placed a manila envelope on the table. Your Honor, he said calmly, the pension in question was legally transferred into an irrevocable trust 2 weeks ago. The beneficiaries are the Sanders' 2 minor grandchildren. This was completed before the divorce filing and is not a marital asset. We have documentation and court filings to verify the legality and timing. Silence. Carla blinked. Her smile cracked. Just a hairline fracture, but I saw it. The first chip. The judge tilted her head. Mrs. Sanders, were you aware of this trust? Her lawyer opened her mouth, closed it, then opened it again. Your Honor, we were not informed of any such trust prior to this hearing. We'd like to request a continuance to review the documents and— You can review them, the judge said, already reaching for the envelope. But if the transfer was done legally and prior to filing, it's not part of this proceeding. I watched Carla's face as the judge flipped through the papers. She tried to hide it, tried to hold on to her courtroom smirk, but her hands betrayed her. They twitched, just slightly, fingers drumming on the table. Her eyes darted to me. I met her gaze, blank and steady. She knew. Right then, she knew what I had done. Her lawyer whispered something to her. Carla leaned in, lips pressed into a tight, bloodless line. I could see the panic swimming behind her eyes now. This wasn't a delay. This wasn't a bump. This was a derailment. The judge looked up. From what I can see, the pension was lawfully placed into trust before divorce proceedings began. The court will not consider that account marital property unless convincing evidence of fraud is presented at trial. In the meantime, we'll proceed with the remaining disclosures. Carla's lips parted slightly, but no words came out. Is there a problem, Mrs. Sanders? The judge asked. She shook her head, swallowing hard. No, Your Honor. But I knew better. Inside, she was screaming. Outside that courtroom, she pulled me aside. Not in public. She had too much pride for that. But in the hallway, near the vending machines, she grabbed my arm with fingers like claws. What the hell did you do? She hissed, her voice low and shaking. I protected what mattered, I said. You wanted a clean break. So I gave you one. They're children, she snapped. And you just tried to sue them, I said, leaning in. How do you think that's going to look in open court? She let go. I turned and walked away, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. Carla had just realized she wasn't in control anymore. And this was just the beginning. She didn't come home that night. No message. No call. Just silence in a half-open closet door where her suit had hung earlier that morning. She wasn't good at hiding panic, not really. For all her dramatics and pretense, Carla had always needed to feel in control. And today, I ripped the wheel out of her hands. I stayed up late, sitting in the dark with the TV off, sipping bourbon I hadn't touched in months. The house was quiet in a way that felt honest. For the first time in a long while, there wasn't a storm of her perfume choking the air, no forced laughter echoing from the kitchen while she FaceTimed God knows who. Just peace. A strange, haunted kind of peace, but peace all the same. Then, just after midnight, her car lights swept across the living room wall. She stumbled through the front door a minute later, heels dangling from her hand, lipstick smeared at the corner of her mouth. She reeked of gin and some man's cologne. Cheap. Spicy. Not mine. She froze when she saw me in the recliner, eyes wide like a deer caught on a dark road. You're still up? She said, trying to soundboard, tossing her keys on the counter. Hard to sleep when someone just tried to rob my grandkids. That landed. She flinched. Her jaw worked, biting down whatever poison she wanted to spit. I didn't know it was them, she finally said. How the hell was I supposed to know you'd do something that low? Low. I laughed. You've been parading around here like I'm a relic, making plans behind my back. You said you were going to take half of everything I had, and you meant it. I just made sure what I had was no longer yours to take. I sacrificed decades of my life for you," she snapped, voice rising. "You think this house ran itself? You think those kids would even be around if it wasn't for me holding this whole family together while you were working your ass off chasing some pathetic pension? You didn't hold anything together," I said, standing up. "You lied. You spent. You took. And now that the spigot's been shut off, you're panicking." She turned away, hands on her hips, staring at the wall like it might give her a better answer than I ever could. "This isn't over," she said quietly. "I'll find a way. You can't just lock me out like this." "Yes, I can." And I did. I walked out before she could say anything else. The next morning, she was gone again. But this time, she'd left something behind. A thick manila envelope sitting on the dining table. Inside, a printed email chain between her and some guy named Craig D. That name hadn't popped up before. He wasn't the usual friend. Not the gym coach she used to disappear with on Tuesdays. Not the realtor she'd claimed was helping her reorganize assets. Craig was someone new. And judging by the tone of the emails, explicit, arrogant, and filled with phrases like, "Once you get your half," and "we'll be free to start over in the Keys," he wasn't just a fling. He was the plan. But why leave it for me? Because she wanted to scare me. Because she thought if I saw what was waiting on the other side of the divorce, I'd fold. That I'd try to win her back. That I'd beg. Or maybe, she was just unraveling. I brought the emails to Roger that afternoon. He flipped through them slowly, not reacting. "She's sloppy," he said. "This guy, Craig, he's baiting her. Wants her to push you harder so she can walk with the cash and fund his lifestyle. Think he knows she tried to sue a children's trust?" Roger laughed. "I doubt it. And I doubt he'll be around much longer once he realizes her gold mine is fenced off." He leaned forward. "But if she keeps pushing this, Gerald, we push back harder. These emails, they might not kill her case yet. But give it time. Let her think she's still got teeth, and when she bears them, then we strike." I nodded, because he was right. Carla wasn't done yet. She was too proud to walk away empty-handed. She still believed she could outwit me. But she didn't realize the ground she was standing on was crumbling, fast. And when it finally gave way, it wouldn't just ruin her. It would humiliate her. Publicly. Permanently. And I would be there to watch it happen. The next few days were eerily calm. Too calm, like the breathless silence before a twister rips through your house and takes the roof with it. Carla wasn't stomping around the house anymore. No passive-aggressive slamming of cabinet doors. No phone calls whispered from the garage. She barely even looked at me. But I could feel the tension tightening in her like wire. Something was brewing. She started sleeping in the guest room. Fine by me. I barely remembered what it felt like to sleep without her huffing beside me like she'd just wasted her life by existing in my airspace. I was eating better, sleeping deeper. Even the dogs stopped barking at nothing in the middle of the night. Peace had returned, at least on the surface. Then came the subpoena. A man in a brown blazer showed up on my porch Tuesday morning with a yellow envelope and a fake smile. "Gerald Sanders?" he asked, as if he didn't already know. I took the papers without a word. She was suing again. This time, not just for half the pension. She wanted attorney fees, alimony, and a share of the trust. She'd filed a motion claiming I intentionally defrauded the marital estate, and that the creation of the trust had been a malicious act of financial abuse. It was laughable, but also dangerous. Roger read the whole thing with a straight face. "She's flailing," he said, "throwing darts in the dark. But that doesn't mean we take it lightly. She's coming for blood now. That means we fight smarter, not louder. What's the play?" He looked up from the paperwork with a calm little smile. "We give her enough rope." And just like that, we pivoted. We stopped talking defense and started building a case of our own. Because here's the thing about Carla. She never knew when to stop digging. She thought she could bury me under accusations and legal bills, but every shovel she swung just revealed more of her own rot. We gathered receipts. Transactions. We subpoenaed her emails. Yes, all of them this time. Not just the sweet nothings to Craig, but the encrypted ones from an old Gmail account she thought I didn't know about. The ones she used to book flights, Airbnbs, and transfers to accounts in her sister's name. Dummy accounts. Fake consulting fees. Thousands of dollars bled from our joint account over the last year. She's been stashing money, Roger said. Planning this long before she said a word to you. Can we use it? Oh, we won't just use it, he said, tapping the folder. We'll make it the centerpiece. Then came the most chilling moment of all. One night, Thursday, I woke to a sound outside the house. Just past 1 a.m. Not a bump, not a thud, a whisper, like someone speaking softly into their phone right outside my bedroom window. I grabbed the flashlight and stepped out the back door. No hesitation. I wasn't scared. I found her in her robe and slippers, sitting in the garden chair behind the shed, clutching her phone like a lifeline. She jumped when she saw me. Jesus, Gerald, she barked. What are you doing sneaking up on me? I live here, I said. What are you doing whispering in the backyard like some teenager sneaking out? She stood up slowly, hugging herself. I just needed air. At 1 a.m? In the backyard? You're lying, Carla. Again. Her mouth trembled, but she bit down whatever excuse she had ready. Her mascara was smudged, either from tears or too much wine. Maybe both. You think this is easy for me? She snapped suddenly. Do you think I wanted it to come to this? I gave you the best years of my life, Gerald. And now you've turned my own grandkids into weapons against me. No, I said calmly. You did that the second you tried to take what wasn't yours. You're being cruel. I stepped closer. No, I'm being careful. Something you haven't been in months. You let this affair, this plan, this idiot fantasy of yours with Craig, who's clearly in it for a payout, turn you into a villain in your own life. Her eyes burned with hatred, not sorrow, not guilt, just rage. And that's when I realized there was no version of this where she walked away quietly. She was going to keep swinging until she burned the entire field down, even if she stood in the center when the flames reached full height. But I wasn't going to fight her in the flames. I was going to make sure the fire never reached me. The next morning, Roger filed a countersuit. We weren't just protecting the trust anymore. We were asking the court to impose sanctions on Carla for malicious prosecution and financial misconduct. If we won, and Roger was confident we would, not only would she lose access to any part of my pension, but she'd be ordered to pay the legal fees she forced me to burn. Tens of thousands. Gone. And the best part? If the judge ruled it that way, she wouldn't be paying me. She'd be paying the trust. She'd be writing checks to the very children she tried to rob. And suddenly, this wasn't about survival anymore. It was about justice. The courtroom was fuller this time. Not a packed gallery like in a TV drama, but enough warm bodies to make Carla feel watched, and she hated being watched when she wasn't the one orchestrating the show. Her lawyer sat stiff beside her, lips pressed so tight they looked like a paper cut. Carla wore black. A fitted blazer. Minimal jewelry. Hair pulled into a tight bun like she was heading to a funeral. In a way, she was. Not mine. Hers. She just didn't know it yet. Roger leaned toward me before the judge entered. Everything's been admitted. Emails, the offshore transactions, even the shell account linked to her sister's bank. She's toast. Only question now is how badly she wants to bleed before we let her die. She's still going to try, I said quietly. Of course she is, he smirked. That's what rats do when they realize the ship's not just sinking, it's already underwater. The judge came in. Same woman as before. She didn't smile. She barely glanced at us. Just shuffled her papers, adjusted her glasses, and began. Today, we are hearing motions from the respondent, Mr. Gerald Sanders, requesting sanctions on the petitioner, Mrs. Carla Sanders, due to evidence of financial misconduct and fraudulent representation during discovery. That sentence hit Carla like a slap. I could see it ripple through her, a twitch in the jaw, a flicker in her eyes. The room was a little too cold, the air a little too thin. Her lawyer stood. She tried to spin it, of course. Claimed it was miscommunication, that Carla had lost track of certain funds during a period of emotional distress, that the Craig emails were deeply personal and irrelevant, and that the money in her sister's name was a private loan from a friend. Roger stood next. No theatrics. No raised voice. Just facts laid out like knives on a table. Your Honor, these aren't mistakes. They're moves. Calculated ones. Mrs. Sanders didn't lose track of money, she funneled it. She didn't forget to disclose assets, she buried them in shell accounts. She didn't stumble into an affair, she conspired with a man to extract maximum financial gain from my client, and when her plan fell apart, she filed this motion out of desperation. Not justice. The judge took it in. No reaction. Just the flipping of pages and the occasional scrawl of a pen. Then came the moment everything changed. "I'd like to read a segment of Exhibit C," Roger said. An email from Mr. Craig D. to Mrs. Sanders, dated 2 months prior to the divorce filing. He cleared his throat. "Once you get your half, we're gone. Screw the old man and his legacy. He won't even know what hit him. I've got our place and the keys lined up. I'll make you forget you ever had a past." A murmur rippled through the back row. The judge didn't look up, just said, "Admitted." Carla's face turned to stone. Her lawyer leaned in, whispered something, probably, "We need a recess," but Carla just shook her head. She stood. "I'd like to say something," she said, voice cracking like ice underfoot. Her lawyer hissed, "Carla, don't." "No, I need to." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Very well." She took 2 steps forward, hands clasped tight in front of her. "I know what this looks like," she said. "And maybe I did make mistakes. But I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I was scared. I gave everything to that man for 30 years and ended up with a chair and a pension I couldn't touch." She looked at me, eyes glassy now, playing the martyr. She always saved her best lies for the final act. "He shut me out, made decisions without me, transferred our future into the hands of children, Your Honor, and now I'm the villain for trying to protect what was also mine." The judge didn't blink. "Mrs. Sanders, do you acknowledge the accounts listed in the respondent's exhibits as being under your control?" Carla hesitated. Yes. And that these were not disclosed in your original financial affidavit?" She opened her mouth, then shut it. "Yes," she whispered. The judge made a note, then looked up. "I'll issue my ruling by the end of the week. This hearing is adjourned." The gavel came down, and for the first time in the entire process, Carla didn't storm out. She staggered. Outside the courtroom, she sat on the concrete ledge by the flagpole, chain-smoking, hands shaking. Her lawyer stood off to the side, not saying a word, probably wondering how she'd get paid now that Carla's world was crumbling like a stale biscuit. I walked past her, slow and deliberate. She looked up, eyes rimmed red. "You ruined me," she croaked. "No," I said. "You did that the day you chose greed over blood." She didn't speak again, but I could see it in her face. She finally understood. She had just lost everything, and she did it with her own 2 hands. 3 days. That's how long the judge took to issue her ruling. 72 hours where Carla barely left the guest room, barely ate, barely moved. The same woman who once ran every room she entered with her voice, her scent, her venom, now a ghost haunting her own house. I could hear her sometimes at night, pacing slowly across the floor like a prisoner measuring her cell. And me? I waited. I cut the grass, re-oiled the hinges on the garage door, repainted the mailbox. Mundane things. Simple. Honest. It wasn't joy I felt, not exactly, but something pure. The satisfaction of still standing. Of watching someone who tried to rob you of your peace finally being forced to sit in her own wreckage. Roger called me early that Thursday. She ruled. I held my breath. Trust remains intact. Not a marital asset. She overplayed. Court found her conduct deceptive, opportunistic, and lacking good faith. Sanctions approved. She's been ordered to pay a portion of your legal fees directly into the trust. I closed my eyes. Let it land. How much? 47 grand. I laughed. A quiet, disbelieving laugh. She'll appeal, I said. Maybe. But unless she finds a new angle, this is over. She's cornered, Gerald. Cornered by her own moves. That afternoon, Carla came out of the room for the first time in days. No makeup. No mask. Just her. She stood in the kitchen like a stranger, looking around like the walls had shifted. Maybe they had. Maybe they always looked different when they stopped being hers. You won, she said. I didn't want to win. I wanted to be left alone. She gave a bitter laugh. Well, congratulations. You got your piece, and I got this. She sat at the table slowly, folding her hands, staring down at them like she didn't recognize them anymore. I was supposed to leave you, she whispered. Take the money, start over. That was the plan. With Craig. Her lip curled. He vanished the second I told him the judge locked up the pension. Guess he didn't want me, after all. Just the promise of your sweat in his hands. Then you were perfect for each other. She didn't argue. Just stared at her fingers, her knuckles white, shoulders sagging like someone 10 years older. You made me look like a monster in court. I stepped to the counter, poured myself coffee. Sipped it. No, Carla. You did that on your own. I just let the light in so people could finally see it. She winced like I'd struck her. I loved you, she said suddenly, bitter and sharp. You think I didn't? I think, I said slowly, you loved being wanted. You loved what I could give you. Stability, safety, identity. But when I stopped being a fountain, you went looking for a new one. That's not love. That's greed in a dress. She didn't cry. Carla never cried unless someone was watching. Instead, she stood, hands shaking slightly, and walked to the fridge. Opened it. Stared inside for too long, then closed it again. I'm going to have to sell my car. I didn't reply. I might have to move in with my sister. For a while. Still nothing from me. She turned then, eyes burning holes through me. This isn't how it was supposed to end. No, I said, meeting her gaze. But it's exactly what you earned. She stormed out, but not like before. No theatrics. No slamming doors. Just the slow walk of someone who'd finally realized there's no more bluff left to play. I found her suitcase packed by the front door later that evening. No note. No goodbye. Just silence. And I let it sit there. Because for the first time in a long damn time, the house felt clean. And the war, as far as I was concerned, was over. But Roger? He called again just before bed. You should know, he said, she's already filed a motion for appeal. And she's hired a new attorney. Aggressive one. I looked out the window into the night. Still. Dark. Calm. Let her appeal, I said. She can sue the trust all she wants. Gerald. No. Let her go to court and try to take money from 2 children. Let her look a judge in the eye and argue that she deserves it more than they do. Let her humiliate herself again. I'm done playing defense. Roger paused. And if she drags you back into court personally? I smiled. Then I'll be the one asking for everything. The appeal was fast-tracked. Apparently, Carla's new lawyer, a real pit bull named Marjorie Kern, had a reputation for dragging blood out of dry stone. She'd made a name for herself defending dirty CEOs and divorcing gold diggers with yacht money. The kind of woman who smiled like a shark and never blinked when the judge entered the room. And now she was coming for me. I wasn't worried. Not in the way Carla wanted me to be. The panic she hoped to trigger with that certified letter didn't land. Not this time. What I felt was something else. A tightening. A sharpening. Like a blade being drawn, slow and deliberate. Roger read the appeal. No theatrics. Just a deep breath, a smirk, and a quiet, they're doubling down on the fraud claim. Calling the trust a deliberate circumvention of equitable distribution. Same argument, just dressed in more expensive shoes. Will it hold? He looked up from the pages. Not unless they pull a rabbit out of their ass. But it'll make noise. And that's probably the point. This isn't about winning. It's about wearing you down. And that's when it hit me. That was Carla's real strategy now. She wasn't swinging for the fences. She was aiming to exhaust me. Emotionally, financially, legally. Leave me dry one invoice at a time. Make me regret every step forward until I collapsed under the weight of my own defense. But she didn't know something crucial. I'd already been through hell, and I had nothing left to lose. The first hearing of the appeal was more formal. Carla arrived in a dark green dress this time, less funeral, more, I'm the victim here. Marjorie walked beside her like a warden escorting an inmate into battle, briefcase in one hand, steely glare aimed straight ahead. They sat across from us, Marjorie nodding politely at Roger but not at me. She didn't look at her opponent. She looked through them. Roger leaned over. I've dealt with her before. She likes to provoke. Let her bark. We keep the leash short. The judge was a new one. Older man. Stern face. Silver eyebrows like wings. He reviewed both filings, flipped pages while the room held its breath, and then nodded slowly. Arguments will be heard. Briefs accepted. But be warned, this court has no appetite for frivolous litigation cloaked in emotional noise. If I sense this is a fishing expedition to circumvent a prior ruling, I will not hesitate to issue sanctions. Marjorie smiled sweetly. Understood, Your Honor. Carla, beside her, stayed silent. Her eyes were dull now, not with defeat, but fatigue. She looked thinner, paler. That fire she once carried, the one she'd aimed at me like a weapon, was now just smoke. But even smoke can choke a man if he breathes too deeply. So I stayed sharp. After court, Marjorie tried to corner Roger in the hallway, talking strategy, settlement possibilities, maybe a more amicable conclusion. Roger didn't flinch. We're not settling. You're trying to reverse an airtight trust because your client regrets trying to rob a pension that wasn't hers to begin with. This isn't a negotiation. It's a reckoning. Then he turned to me. Walk out with your head high, Gerald. Let her wonder how the hell you sleep so soundly. So I did. I walked right past Carla. She didn't speak. She didn't look at me. But I saw her hand twitch, clenching and unclenching by her hip like she wanted to grab something, my shirt, my throat, the past. I gave her nothing. That night, I got a call. Not from Roger. Not from court. From my daughter, Claire. Dad. Mom called me. I felt my pulse shift. She said you're trying to screw her out of everything. That you're making her pay for. I don't know. For being unhappy. What did you say? Claire hesitated. I told her to stop dragging the family through her mess. But I also told her I'd listen. My stomach turned. Claire, she's trying to weaponize you. This isn't about justice. It's revenge. I know, she said softly. But you're not the only one she's hurting. She's been calling Ava too. Asking weird questions. If the trust ever sends money, what it's meant for. That kind of stuff. Ava, 9 years old, being dragged into this. That was the moment I saw red. She tries to involve my grandkids again, I said. I'll file a restraining order. And this time, we won't settle quietly. Claire went quiet for a long time. Then, I just wanted to stop, Dad. For all of us. So do I said. But not until the lesson is permanent. I hung up and sat there alone, staring into the dark. Because Carla had just crossed a line even Roger hadn't anticipated. She wasn't just trying to win anymore. She was trying to poison the future. And now, it was personal. 2 days later, Roger called me with a voice I didn't recognize. It wasn't angry. It wasn't confident. It was still. Too still. We've got a situation, he said. You need to come in. I was there in under 30 minutes. He had the files already laid out on his desk. Court documents. Bank statements. A transcript. She's filed a secondary motion, he said. She's trying to get the trust declared fraudulent in structure. Says it was a sham transaction done with malicious intent to block her rightful claim. I laughed. But Roger didn't. She's attached a declaration from Craig. That made me stop. He slid the document across the desk. I scanned it fast, my eyes catching on every jagged sentence. Craig, her affair partner, her co-conspirator, the leech, had turned. He was now stating, under oath, that I had coerced Carla emotionally for years, that the trust was a punishment mechanism, and that I had engineered a false legal trap to destroy her financial standing out of spite. It was fiction, pure fantasy. But the signature was real. So was the notary. She's pulling out the last card, Roger said quietly. Desperation level. Nuclear. And he's playing along? He's protecting his own ass. Probably thinks he'll look like some white knight. Or maybe she promised him a cut of whatever she thinks she's getting. I clenched my jaw. What do we do? Roger leaned back in his chair. We bring out the artillery. And we did. We filed a cross motion. This time, we weren't just defending the trust. We were accusing Carla and Craig of conspiracy to commit civil fraud. We included Craig's prior emails, the ones dripping with greed, and attached digital metadata showing their timestamps, the dates they'd been modified. Even screenshots of her deleting conversations off a shared cloud account that she thought I didn't know still synced to my backup. That's the part that broke her plan. Because Craig's declaration directly contradicted the very messages he sent her. Ones where he outlined how to hide money. Where he joked about getting the old man's retirement checks before he strokes out. We filed a supplemental brief that same afternoon. And when the court date was set, an emergency evidentiary hearing, Roger smiled for the first time in days. She's cornered now, Gerald. This is her final gasp. The day of the hearing, she showed up in beige. It was a new look for her, washed out, innocent, almost librarian-like. No red lips. No tall heels. Just a beige dress and a flat expression. Craig was there too. In person. Cocky, tan, fake smile glued on like cheap cologne. He didn't even glance at me. Probably didn't want to. Probably knew he was walking into a buzzsaw. The judge wasted no time. Due to new conflicting testimony and attached evidence, this court will hear argument regarding potential bad faith conduct by both petitioner and external witness Craig Donalds. Roger stood, unfolded the pages one by one, spoke with precision, patience, fury wrapped in velvet. He read the texts, the money transfers, the metadata, the plan laid bare in Craig's own words. Once she gets half, we bounce, and her reply, he's soft. He won't fight back. He never has. The judge interrupted halfway through. Is the petitioner present? She asked. Carla stood, hands folded, shoulders hunched. Do you dispute the authenticity of these communications? She shook her head, barely audible. No, Your Honor. The courtroom went silent. The judge looked to Craig. And you, sir? He was sweating now, voice cracking. They were out of context. Context? Roger echoed, stepping forward. The context is crystal clear, Your Honor. These two individuals colluded to bankrupt my client and mislead this court. And now, faced with actual consequences, they want to reframe their intent. This isn't context. This is cowardice. The judge looked furious. She closed the file. Sanctions will be decided at the conclusion of this hearing. But let me make one thing clear now. This court does not reward lies. She turned to Carla. You have attempted to leverage the legal system to secure assets that were never yours. And you have done so using falsified emotional narratives, contradictory testimony, and unethical strategies. Your actions have harmed not just the respondent, but the integrity of this courtroom. Carla sat down. Quiet. Gray. Done. We left the courthouse without speaking. Roger didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. We both knew there was one hearing left, the ruling, set for next week. But it didn't matter. Not anymore. Because I had seen her crumble. Right there in front of everyone. The last thread of her control snapping as her lies caved in. I walked out into the spring sun, slow and calm, and took the deepest breath of my life. And in my gut, I knew. Next week, she wouldn't just lose. She'd be branded. The final hearing arrived like the last bell of a long war. It was bright outside, strangely so, like the world didn't care that inside a courtroom, a life was about to be dissected, measured, and judged for what it truly was. I wore the same navy jacket I'd worn to my daughter's wedding. Not for sentiment, just symmetry. Because that was the last time I truly felt proud standing among family, among love. And now, I wasn't just protecting that love. I was avenging it. Roger and I said little on the way in. We didn't need to. He was sharp that morning, focused, like a surgeon holding the scalpel above the final stitch. We'd done the work. All that remained was for the court to hand down its truth. And I trusted truth. Carla sat alone this time. No Craig. No Marjorie. She had fired her pit bull 2 days before, and rumor had it Craig had run off to Florida with a different, recently separated woman. Figures. When the ship sank, the rats scattered. But she stayed. And if I had to guess, it wasn't for dignity. It was because part of her still believed some miracle would rewrite the script. The judge entered. Calm. Unrushed. She opened a slim folder, scanned a few lines, and then spoke with the finality of a door slamming shut. This court has reviewed the evidence submitted, including communications between the petitioner and third-party Craig Donalds, financial records, metadata logs, and prior sworn testimony. It is the court's conclusion that the petitioner, Carla Sanders, engaged in deliberate deception. No sound, not even a cough. Carla didn't flinch, but I could see her breathing change shallow now, almost trembling. The judge continued. The trust established by the respondent was created prior to divorce proceedings, lawfully structured, and in good faith for the benefit of minor grandchildren. This court affirms its legitimacy and classifies it as a protected, non-marital asset. Roger nodded, barely. Furthermore, the judge said, pausing to glance at Carla, the actions of the petitioner to undermine said trust, including submission of false declarations and attempts to mislead the court, constitute bad faith litigation. She folded her hands, voice flat as stone. Therefore, the petitioner is ordered to pay full attorney fees incurred by the respondent during the course of this appeal, in the amount of $82,416. Payment will be made directly to the trust. Carla blinked. Once. Just once. This court further cautions the petitioner that any future contact with the trust's beneficiaries for the purpose of influence, financial discussion, or coercion will result in a permanent protective order and referral to Child Protective Services for review of intent. The judge closed the file. Case dismissed. Ruling is final. Gavel. One sharp knock. And it was done. Not a soul moved for a second. Carla stood. Not quickly. She didn't grab her things. Just walked out. Shoulders hunched, face blank, like someone who'd forgotten how to feel. There were no tears. No screams. Just absence. A black hole in heels. I stepped outside 5 minutes later and found Roger leaning against a bench, sunglasses on, arms crossed like he'd just wrapped up a quiet chess match. Clean sweep, he said. You're free. No, I said. They are. He smiled. Hell of a thing to do for your grandkids. I didn't do it for them, I said, looking toward the sky. I did it because of them. There's a difference. I thanked him, shook his hand, and then I went home. Later that night, Claire called. Her voice was different, small, hesitant. She told Ava you'd taken everything from her, that you ruined her. And what did Ava say? Claire hesitated. She told her, Grandpa saved everything, and you tried to steal it. Then she hung up. I closed my eyes. She's smart, I said. She's yours, Claire replied. I poured myself a drink. Sat down at the kitchen table, where so many fights had once unfolded. And for the first time in what felt like a century, I exhaled. Not because I had one, but because justice had finally, painfully, loudly rung out. And Carla? She hadn't just lost the case. She'd burned every bridge on her way down. Tried to sue children. Betrayed her own name. Lied under oath. Stood in court and let her last shred of dignity rot on record. No appeal could erase that. No new man could undo that. And no amount of beige clothing could mask what she had become. She wanted to make me look small. Instead, she made herself unforgettable for all the wrong reasons. And the best part? The trust she tried to destroy will outlive us both. It's been 3 months since the final ruling. No more court dates. No more subpoenas. No more beige dresses or crocodile tears. Just quiet. The kind that feels earned. I see Tyler and Ava every Sunday. We bake cookies now. Terrible ones, burnt on the edges, gooey in the middle. Ava insists they're perfect. Tyler likes stacking the chocolate chips until they fall off in clumps. They don't know what really happened. Not in full. Not yet. They just know Grandpa fixed something big. Something important. Sometimes Claire watches me from the doorway while I play with them. She's said it twice now, once in a whisper, once when she thought I'd fallen asleep in the recliner. Thanks, Dad. For protecting them. For taking the hit so they'd never have to. She's the only one Carla hasn't called since the ruling. Not once. And I doubt she will. The court order was clear. One step near the trust, or the kids, and the consequences go nuclear. Her name is now legally bound to failure. It's in the court transcripts. In the casebooks. Anyone who pulls up her name in the system will see that she tried to sue 2 minors for money that was never hers to begin with. She's radioactive now. Last I heard through a whispery cousin, she's living with her sister out near Glendale. No car. No job. Craig's gone. Of course he is. Parasites don't cling to burned-out husks, they move on. I imagine she's spending her days Googling how to sue a trust and staring at old photos where her eyes still sparkled. But here's the thing. She did this to herself. I didn't smear her name. I didn't beg the judge to humiliate her. I just defended what was mine, what was right. She pulled every trigger. I just made sure the bullets hit steel instead of skin. There's a small envelope in my nightstand drawer now. Sealed. Labeled in Ava's shaky handwriting. Open when we're grown up. Inside it is a letter I wrote the day after we won. It explains everything. The trust. The lawsuit. The betrayal. Not to poison them, but to warn them. To show them what people are capable of when they're driven by greed, entitlement, and bitterness. And to remind them what it means to stand your ground. When you're right, you hold. Even when it hurts. Especially then. That's the legacy I've chosen. Not a pension. Not a title. Not some dusty old plaque. But this. The knowledge that one day, 10, 20, 40 years from now, they'll look back, read that letter, and know their grandfather stood between them and the worst of the world and didn't blink. And when they ask why I did it, the answer will be simple. Because no one, not even someone who once wore a ring on her finger, gets to mock my life's work, drag my name, and try to steal from the blood in my veins without meeting the full weight of who I really am. Carla thought she was clever. She thought she could belittle me, strip me down, and walk off with my dignity in one hand and a cocktail in the other. But in the end, she walked away with nothing. No money, no man, no story left to tell that anyone believes. And me? I still sit in the same old chair, the one she called pathetic. But when I lean back and hear Ava laugh, when I see Tyler run in with sticky fingers, when I open that spreadsheet and see every dollar still exactly where it belongs, I smile, because the legacy she tried to destroy became something greater. Proof that sometimes the quiet man wins. Proof that the good guy, when pushed far enough, becomes a wall no one can climb. Proof that the only thing more dangerous than a betrayed man is a man who fights only for the innocent.